Welcome to Today in Esports, where we get to go over everything that is happening this upcoming weekend for esports across the globe for a multitude of different competitions. It's a little bit of a lighter week this weekend, but still competitions nonetheless. What's going to be happening in Call of Duty Major 2 qualifiers are going to be underway again this upcoming weekend. Optics still in the absolute blunder. Vancouver Surge, are they the real deal? Are the Thieves the best team? League of Legends, first stand. What's going on with all of that? How does it all work? ESL Pro League is still happening. Stage 1 has just wrapped up. Stage 2 is about to be getting underway. And we have all of that plus some more. My name is Andy. Join with me is Chris. How you doing today, Chris?
I'm doing great. We had some great games that we covered last week, but we're looking forward, and I can't wait to see what's going to happen next week.
Yep, like Chris said, everything that we just went over this past weekend is in the past. So let's get prepared for what is going to be happening this upcoming weekend, starting off with some Call of Duty matchups. As I was saying earlier, Major 2 qualifiers are continuing this upcoming weekend following what just concluded this past weekend with Minor 2. And we got some key narratives to keep in mind. Are LA Thieves the #1 team in the game? Are Vancouver Surge the real deal? Are Optic Texas in the absolute blunder? Well, that one's obvious, but are they going to make a change? All of that and more, but we're going to be keeping a close eye on a key few matchups, although we do have matchups starting all across the weekend this Friday to start things off. Let's start taking a look at it. Starting off this weekend will be the rematch for Grand Finals in between the LA Thieves versus the Vancouver Surge. The problem is we don't have a best of 7 for these two to slug it out on. Vancouver had hit new strides since bringing Neptune into the mix. It's leveled the team to the heights the players have been known to hit, most recently Nasty. They are 3-0 in this stage for qualifiers, including a win versus Atlanta FaZe. The Surge won both the hard points in the best of 7 and the red card search and destroy during the best of 7 versus the Thieves, and you would imagine one of the hard points will be vetoed, money being on the Hacienda, where the red card search and destroy, well, it might not be available to play. This is all depending on the severity of the approach for the LA Thieves. The Thieves could use this best of 5 as a chance to hone in those maps that they're already lost to the Surge in the Grand Finals to make their map pool stronger ahead of the LAN for Texas. If they are strapped for the win and want to guarantee the top seed going into the LAN, pending what happens to them in this series and other teams with similar win-loss records at the end of the qualifier stage. LAT are also undefeated this qualifier, thus far with a single map loss, which was a 1-6 loss on Skyline Search and Destroy versus the Vegas Falcons. And yet, albeit Minor 2 champions beating the new Surge in Minor 2 Grand Finals, I feel like that they still haven't overcome the round 11 map 7 loss on LAN in Madrid versus the Atlanta FaZe. Which leads us into Saturday, starting off with Atlanta FaZe versus the Minnesota Rocker. Rocker are looking for a bounce back following their map 5 round 1 loss versus Cloud9 New York in the minor this past weekend. It was a 9-point difference in map 1 and round 11 map 2 into a 3-0 control map 3 win versus New York, and you could argue they could have gone on to round 2 of the tournament. Minnesota currently sits at 2-1 in the qualifier stage, with their one loss being an 0-3 loss to Carolina. The problem is we're asking them for a bounce back win against the Atlanta FaZe. Although FaZe got a bounce in their first match this past weekend and have now lost twice to the Vancouver Surge in a 30-day span post-Major 1 win, it's still FaZe, and we expect them to take back to business per usual, building their map pool for champs and other things they typically do well. They are also 2-1 this stage of qualifiers post-week 1 loss to Vancouver. Also on Saturday, Cloud9 New York take on Carolina Royal Ravens. Carolina are still regarded to most, stats included, to be a top 5 team in the game, but where do they all fall into that top 5, and where are their current struggles? Every time they face up against LA Thieves and Atlanta FaZe, they lose, sometimes embarrassingly, especially in the respawns. This includes an 0-3 to the Thieves week 1 of these qualifiers and their second match of this past week's minor. Including that with a 1-3 loss to Ultra, they currently sit at 2-2 overall this qualifier and can do well with a win here. Cloud9 New York, on the other hand, have been looking better post-Major 1 and are 3-1 this qualifier, and Cloud9 will be giving Carolina a good fight, best believe that, and will test them in their respawns most crucially. It's still early doors, but Cloud9 New York are technically outside of the bubble for champs and need to start considering what they can do to solidify that spot, let alone a solid placement at the upcoming Major in Texas. A statement win here and a solid seed for the Major would go a long way in the narrative developing further. Finally, on Saturday, we have Optic Texas going up against Miami Heretics. All eyes continue to be on the green wall as they bounce back in action on Saturday versus Miami. Optic Texas got the round 1 win versus the Falcons in the minor this past weekend 3-1, but what does that actually mean? You all should decide that and let me know what you think. What I can tell you, though, is that Optic currently sit at 0-12 for map counts versus teams not named Vegas Falcons post-Major 1 and roster change. They need a qualifier win bad. They're 0-3 this split. The Heretics can surely take advantage of this and tie up their qualifier record to 2-2. They lost 1-3 versus both Rocker and FaZe this stage and face Vancouver Surge later on Sunday. There might need to be a conversation started as Miami have now bounced out of their first match of Minor 1 and 2 this season following their third place in Madrid, but we'll shelf it for now. On to Sunday the 9th. Got ourselves a good old-fashioned Burger Bowl. The Vegas Falcons going up against the Los Angeles Guerrillas, mate. LAG are still going through the growing pains since the Lunars call-up, but did look better when running with Priesta in recent matches, beating the Heretics round 1 of the minor and snapping their map 5 curse. Both teams are 0-3 currently in Stage 2 qualifiers. They currently sit towards the bottom, if not the bare bottom, of the differentials rankings across the entirety of the league. The Vegas Falcons are dead last for hardpoint differential and control. Basically what I'm saying, they lose by the most across the 2 respawn game modes, and LAG Gorilla Mate currently lose by the most in Search and Destroy. They rank 12th. Vegas Falcons not too far away, but LAG, well, they're still technically 5th when it comes down to control, so take them where you can get them. Vegas Falcons are 7-42 in maps across the entire season, 0-14 in series count. LAG are 3-11 in series count and 23-33 in maps. Statistically, this one could be a series for the ages. Depending on where Optic are post-Saturday could put even more focus on this matchup versus the Toronto Ultra. Last time they faced last week in the minor on Saturday, Toronto won handedly in the hardpoint, but the Search and Destroy and Control went round 11 and 5 respectively. Toronto currently sit at 2-2 in the qualifiers this stage, and I imagine it would extend to 3-2 leading into this matchup following their Friday night matchup versus the Vegas Falcons. And that's everything that we're going to be watching this upcoming weekend for Call of Duty. Make sure you go over towards our YouTube channel and follow all the action, and check back here on Monday for our analysis on all the matches that we just stated.
Thank you, Andy, for that. I can't wait to see more updates on the Call of Duty League, especially that Burger Bowl. But let's go ahead and take a transition to League of Legends. The Split 1 has finally ended, and we are moving towards the first stand, the inaugural tournament of the 3rd international tournament for Riot Games. So let's take a look at it. First stand will start out in Korea this year from March the 10th through March the 16th. Its format will be split into 2 different phases, a round robin stage starting on March the 10th through the 14th, which will be a best of 3 with the Fearless Draft, and then phase 2 will be a knockout stage starting on March the 15th through 16th, single elimination best of 5, also a Fearless Draft. And the first place team from the first stand tournament will auto-qualify for MSI, so a lot is on the stake for these teams. But the teams, who are they? Let's take a look at it. We'll run through them by region, starting with LTEA. Team Liquid, the 4th seed in the North and the only team to lose 1 game in the quarterfinals of the Cross Conference Championship, ended up beating IE, C9, and 100 Thieves to make it and qualify for the first stand tournament. Taking a look at Europe, EMEA's LEC Carmine Corps, who ended up losing to G2 in the upper bracket finals, had to make a run through the lower bracket, defeating Koi FNC, and then in a grudge rematch versus G2, ended up sweeping them 3-0 to make it to first stand. In LCK, Korea's Hanwha Life Esports was the 2nd seed in Team Baron, who ended up having to play through a play-ins to make it to the playoff bracket. Ended up making it to the playoff bracket, beating T1, Gen.G, and D+ for a upper bracket run sweep to make it the first stand. They are also the team that had to play the most games at 33 to make it the first stand. In LPL, China Top Esports was the 2nd seed in their group and had to make a full lower bracket run. They beat teams such as IG, NIP, BBG, and JDG, as well as anyone's Legends to make it to first stand. In the Pacific region, LCP, CTBC Flying Oysters, who placed 2nd in the regular season, made an upper bracket run, beating teams such as GAM, Vikings, and Talon to make it the first stand. So now that we know all the teams, let's take a look at the matches that will be starting in the group stage on Monday. To kick it off, we have the classic NA versus EU. Team Liquid will face off versus Carmine Corp at 4 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Next, we have Korea versus China. Han1 Life Esports versus Top Esports will follow after that match closely around 7 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. On Tuesday, Pacific will make their debut with CTBC Flying Oysters versus Carmine Corp at 4 a.m. and then followed by Team Liquid versus Top Esports after that match. On Wednesday, we'll have CTBC Flying Oysters versus Han1 Life Esports, followed by Carmine Corp and Top Esports. On Thursday, we'll have Team Liquid versus CTBC Flying Oysters, followed by Carmine Corp and Han1 Life Esports. Finally, on Friday, to conclude the group stage, we will have CTBC Flying Oysters versus Top Esports and Team Liquid and Han1 Life concluding the matches for those group stages. Again, it will be the top 4 teams that will make it to that playoff bracket stage, single elimination, so we'll have to see which teams make it throughout that week to get to that playoff bracket. Make sure you join us next week as we go over those group stage matches.
Thank you so much, Chris. Yeah, I'm super excited to see what's going on with First Stand. Again, it is the first of 3 international tournaments that we do have for League of Legends, and it's the first time that we do get a look at First Stand. A lot of firsts, but it should be a good time. And speaking of first, well, there's a lot of that to go over, plus some more, as we get a look into the social media sphere this week in esports.
All right, let's take a look at some of the tweets that we have for this week. Taking a look at the first highest viewed event, we have the LCK Cup. We had T1 versus HLE. Zeus actually moved to HLE, so of course everyone wanted to see him versus his former team, T1, the 2024 World's Champions for League of Legends. Next, we have IM Katowice taking the second spot. On third, Mobile Legends, the Snapdragon Pro Series coming out big, but look at this, LEC Winter, Carmine Corp versus G2 beating out Valorant Masters Bangkok in viewership. The Carmine Corp versus G2 grudge match rematch to get to First Stand, took that number 4 spot, but we did have Valorant Masters Bangkok taking the 5th place, T1 coming out on top versus G2. Brought in a lot of viewership as well. Look at that 500,000 viewership on that finals match. Great job by them. Of course, if you want to check out more of those charts, make sure you check out Esports charts to see what other games are doing well. All right, let's go ahead and take a look at the next tweet.
Next up from Sheep Esports, we have Carmine Corp reportedly considering joining inside of traditional sports as the organization is in an advanced discussion with some basketball teams. Very interesting stuff. This is all, of course, from some pretty notable sources. So make sure you go over towards Sheep_Esports on X to follow along with that conversation.
All right, taking a look at our last tweet today. Unfortunately, a little bit of a sad one here for G2. They came up so close in so many of their games recently, but just fell short of a lot of them. Most notably would be their loss in Masters Bangkok to T1, missing out on that trophy there. But then another one, we're gonna move to the league loss against KC in the finals, who they beat in the upper bracket, but lost to them in the grand finals, meaning they're not going to First Stand. HLE lost in the Valorant Hextech series there, which is going to be, of course, their sister team in Valorant. We moved to their Game Changers as well, which lost to GX, so a little bit there. Andy told us about this earlier, but Rockstar lost to C9 in the minor too, so they're losing a little bit there. And of course, they're lost to FaZe and IM Katowice. And this little funny one, they lost to the Fluffy Gangsters in the CCT Season 2, as well as to Oxygen in Rainbow Six. But don't worry, G2 Army, it literally can't get worse than this. And that's all for our tweets today. Andy?
Yep, and speaking of all of what went down for G2, a little bit of reminiscent, but a little bit of looking in towards the future, perhaps. They're going to be put on the shelf, but to dive further in towards this, we're going to shift our focus over towards Valorant and what we can expect out of that esport in this upcoming weekend.
Professional Valorant is on hold for the weekend following T1's incredible lower bracket run at Masters Bangkok. Congratulations, T1, for winning. VCT regional games are looking to start soon, with America's region starting on March 21st, China on March 13, MEMA on March 26, and the Pacific region on March 22nd. These teams will be facing off to secure spots in the next Masters on June 7th, Masters Toronto. Will we see T1 fight back again? Will G2 ever recover from their loss in the grand finals, or will we see another team rise up to take the Masters? Make sure you tune into us next time for more coverage on Valorant as we cover those games going into the next Masters.
However, if you want to watch more competitive Valorant in between your ranked game, VCT Challengers is ongoing across the entirety of the globe. The Swiss stage for North America is ending this upcoming week. March 5th is when it starts and when it is going to be concluding and when it is going into the double elimination bracket for their playoffs, which starts on March 10th. All matches are best of 3, and then with lower finals and grand finals, we'll be in a best of 5. But like I said, this is happening across the globe. So if you want to be watching some very high-level Valorant in between while we wait for what we will have at Masters Toronto, make sure you watch all the VCT challenges.
Thanks, Andy, but let's go ahead and take a look at some Counter-Strike. Some crazy matches took place this weekend in Counter-Strike, with some teams being able to lock into Stage 2 and some narrowly avoiding elimination. Round 3, Gamer Legion and Saw won their 2 matches in this round, which locked them into Stage 2. Both games went 2-1, with Tyloo and M8 fighting not to be eliminated. Gamer Legion versus Tyloo came down to a very close match 3, with Gamer Legion winning 13-11. Tyloo almost gave them their first loss to Stage 1 in the final matches. 30 Max, Eternal Fire, and MIBR all won their matches 2-0 in this round, which secured their place in Stage 2. LVG, Nigma would hold on fighting to go to Stage 2. House Bets and Mindfreak are eliminated from proceeding to Stage 2.
Moving on into round 4, MIBR, Eternal Fire, and 3D Max won their matches respectfully to secure their position for Stage 2, with Tyloo, FlyQuest, and M80 moving to the final chance to secure a seat. Namiga, Pain Gaming, and Furia will continue their push to secure a slot in Stage 2. Heroic, LVG, and NRG would be eliminated after losing these matches.
Round 5, the final round for Stage 1, we saw FlyQuest losing to Tyloo, Pain Gaming beating Nigma, and Furia beating M80. These matches were close as all teams were fighting from being eliminated. Tyloo almost got eliminated, with both teams' economy being almost 0 in round 10, which Tyloo made the game-winning fight and then win the series 13-10.
With the completion of round 5, we now get to see what Stage 2 will look like. Let's go ahead and take a look at the upcoming matches that will start on March 7th. There should be some good matches like Mongols versus Gamer Legions and Falcons versus Liquid. There, of course, will be some stomps, but maybe some underdogs will come out on top, like Tyloo making it out of Stage 1. Make sure to tune in on Monday so we can go over all the action that went over across the weekend for Counter-Strike. And that's all we got for today in esports leading in towards the weekend. A little bit of a lighter episode, but 'tis the season for the competition when it comes down to esports. We'll see you back on Monday for all of our analysis for everything we went over for today's episode. And we look forward to all of your input in the comment section. Make sure to like and subscribe, and we'll see you back on Monday for our analysis of this weekend's competition.